Hey, how's it going? My name is Paul and I build guitars. I'm also a bassist myself, and after wanting to own a Stingray bass for the longest time, I finally got around to building my own. In this video, you'll see how exactly I did it, and I hope you'll enjoy it. Let's kick off this build by printing out the plans I made in SolidWorks and preparing the stock material. The wood I used for the body is American swamp ash, and for the neck I used roasted flamed maple. I squared up the planks for the body and I glued them up. I routed out a slot for the truss rod, and then I cut out the body and the neck on a bandsaw. I ended up having to change bands a few times as the first one was too fine and got stuck too much, and the one I switched to was too rough and it proved impossible to make clean cuts with this one. An oscillating belt sander is perfect for squaring up the edges on the freshly cut out body and neck. After sanding them both to the final dimensions, I laid out the bridge, neck plate, pickup template, body and neck to make sure that they could all be aligned perfectly. After deciding on the placement of the humbucker, I routed out the cavity. The truss rod could be installed and the Powfurrow fretboard glued on. A strip of masking tape prevents the glue from seeping into the truss rod channel. This is very important. You don't want to ruin your neck adjusting capabilities because these will prove invaluable when setting up the instrument. Even though I don't have the biggest wood shop, I'm doing what I can with the space I have, and having a nice cup of coffee in the sun while thinking over difficult parts of the project is one of the most relaxing things for me. The frets were calculated for a 34-inch scale length, marked out and then pre-cut. If you're planning on doing this yourself, use measurements from the nut as your base 0. If you use the spaces between the frets, every tiny increment you're off will add up, almost certainly ruining the fret spacing. The electronics cavity was routed out, after which I used a round-off bit to start the contours of the body. Here, I use a technique I picked up watching Crimson Guitars. Masking tape is a great way to temporarily glue your workpiece to a stable working surface. Using CA glue on the masked off parts only, you can keep things in place very tightly without the superglue ruining your piece. I used my leveling beam to make the arm cut. For the tummy cut, I made a crude jig to draw a radius on the body. After I played around a bit with the endpoints, a proper radius was found and cut out using a set of rasps. My best friend, who I'm building these guitars with, notified me of the ongoing clearance sale on sandpaper at the local home improvement store. I did what any reasonable adult would do, and I bought every roll that was left on the discount shelves. Using wood grain filler, I sealed off the pores of the wood. I apply a thick layer, and now it's time for more sanding. Now it's time to make our pickguard. To make the iconic, egg-shaped pickguard of a stingray, I used a coping saw to cut out the rough shape. I then made an MDF template, and I used my router with a flush trim bit and then a chamfered bit to neatly cut out the pickguard and take off the edges. I made a fretboard radiusing jig. This allows me to neatly decide a fretboard radius and efficiently cut the radius into the fretboard perfectly centered. I've recorded most of me building it, and I will release a video of how I made it shortly. Anyways, the frets can now be resawn to their final depth. As this base is my rendition of the Stingray by Music Man, I decided to do a manta ray inlay on the 12th fret. I used epoxy mixed with blue glow-in-the-dark powder. I mark out the inlay positions and get to drilling out the dots and carving out the 12th fret. Sanding away the surplus of epoxy really nicely reveals the inlays. I put polishing compound on the fretboard after sanding it all down, and I went over it with a lamb wool polishing pad. The leftover compound that got pushed into the pores in the wood can be removed using benzene. I made two knobs for this base out of the same woods as the neck. Roasted maple with a pau ferro top. I always like keeping a consistent theme throughout my build, and these will tie the body and the neck together nicely. I gave it a polish with the same compound as was used on the neck, and then I finished it off with oil. The neck shape that I personally prefer is a relatively thin C shape. A Shinto saw rasp made quick work removing most of the material, as I kept checking the thickness at the 3rd, 5th and 12th fret to ensure a perfectly balanced neck. I fitted the end of the neck with a Tusk fake bone nut. The nut spacing is 41mm, as is standard on most bases. Tung oil is one of my favorite finishes. It's also used on gun stocks, among other things, and it gives the fretboard a beautiful satin shine. It crystallizes the wood partly, and it helps form a hard, resistant barrier, so all of the grease from my mechanic fingers cannot get to the bare wood anymore, staining it. The frets can be installed now too. They were cut to size and hammered in at both ends and then in the middle. Doing it this way locks the hooks on the tang of the fret wire tightly into place. This prevents the fret ends from coming loose and sticking back up out of the wood. This could be really uncomfortable while playing. Using a 90-degree fret file in a wooden block, the ends were filed flush with the fretboard, and then the 45-degree angle was used to file the frets at that angle. The fretboard was taped off to avoid unnecessary damage, and then the frets were leveled using a straight edge leveling beam. Permanent marker is really useful here, and I applied it before crowning to see how much material is being removed. Because the frets are left pretty rough, the frets are now sanded up to 2000 grit and then polished. A small file with a rounded off smooth side was used to round every single fret end. The final polish was then applied with a Dremel tool. As you can see here, every single fret end has been individually rounded off and polished. This is very important, as this will make a huge difference in comfort while playing the instrument once it's finished. As you saw in the intro, unfortunately I dropped the freshly sanded body while preparing it for finishing. After filling in the dents and a thorough resanding, the multiple coats of nitro can be applied. I used white primer, and then I used leftover nitro from my hollow body base as more primer and also to fill up more lower spots in the body. And then I used the surf green as a color coat. Then I gave it 8 more clear coats of nitro, and then it was back to sanding and polishing.
Hey guys, it's Paul here. I just wanted to thank you for making it this far into this video. I know it's been a little bit chaotic with, not having a proper place to work and stuff and having to do a lot of stuff outside, but I'm hoping that it's still watchable enough, and I hope that you are enjoying watching me build all of this. Hopefully next time I'll have a proper workspace set up. I just want to give a quick heads up that I'm actually starting to sell these under the name SP Guitars. Me and my friend are actually working on producing even more basses and normal guitars as well. If you're interested, please keep an eye out. I'll post updates and everything. So yeah, I hope that you'll enjoy the rest of the build. Let's get on with this.
After this was all finished, the neck can be treated with tung oil, and they can both be left to harden and dry completely. After the neck was fully hardened as well, I used waterslide paper to print a headstock decal and applied it, sealing it in with more clear nitro lacquer. Now it's time to do the electronics. Special carbon-infused shielding paint was used in the cavities to avoid interference and buzzing. This special kind of paint actually conducts electricity because of the carbon it's been infused with. Because its conductive properties, it actually forms a Faraday cage around the electronics, making it less receptive to electromagnetic waves, which could cause buzzing and other issues. I then wired up 2 pots for a simple tone volume passive circuit. The pickup that I used is a Seymour Duncan ceramic humbucker. The bridge, pickguard and knobs are all installed on the body. For the neck plate though, I still have a trick up my sleeve. I used a plotting machine and Adobe Illustrator to trace my signature out of a vinyl sticker material. I applied it to the neck plate, and using a salt, vinegar and water mixture, I etched the signature into the plate. By using my old welder to run a current through it, the metal was quicker to react, and so I had a clear etch in no time. Finally, the neck can be bolted onto the body. The tuning machines are installed and the strings are attached. Now all that's left is to let the instrument settle, tune her up, and hear how it sounds. Hey again, thank you for sticking it out through the entire video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please tell me what you think about my entire build in the comments. I'd love to hear your opinions. Keep an eye out on updates if you're interested. I'm going to be selling guitars as I mentioned earlier in the video. And this one will also be for sale if there's interest and people actually want to buy it. I'm making a website that will list every single guitar that me and my friend have available right now. Well, I hope to see you again in my next build video. Thanks for watching again, and I'll catch you later. Bye!